In this video, I'd like to go over placing and editing components. We have an empty scene here, and I'm just going to drag a few things into the scene and then show you how to place them, and then maybe we can change some parameters. So let's begin by dragging in something under the architectural components. This top pane here is the component categories, and they're all organized under the main folder for the grouping. Down below in this pane is the actual component list, these icons as you can go through them, and down below this is just a larger thumbnail of the selected object. Okay, so let's begin by dragging something in. I'm going to drag in a blue hut, for example, and maybe I'll drag in a pillar. Okay, and let's bring in one other thing. Let's go under miscellaneous and let's just bring in a windmill. Alright, so these are fairly small compared to that structure, so let's zoom in. I'll use my wheel mouse and get a little closer here. Right away you can see that these objects are floating by the disconnected shadow. So what we'll do is I'll select this hut, for example, and move it down into the ground. Now when I select something, I'm presented with these directional arrows. This is called the manipulator handle. The cones indicate the direction of movement. The spheres indicates the rotation around an axis. So for example, because I want to move this down to the ground, I'll click this cone, the blue one, and that will lock me to the up and down movement. If I want to move in the direction of the red cone, if I click that, it'll lock me into that direction. If I click this box in the center, this allows me to move in all directions. So I can just drag that and you can see I can move that any way I want. Okay, so for this example, I'm just going to set this into the ground. So I'll click the blue cone and just drag that to the ground like that. Maybe I'll rotate it. So why don't I click on this blue sphere, and then now when I rotate around that axis. Okay, I'm going to do the same for the pillar. So I'll left click on that pillar to select it. Then I'll grab that blue handle and I'll just drop that down. Since it's pretty small, I should zoom into that. For me to focus it right into the center of my screen, I could either hold the Alt key down and right mouse button click and move it to the center of the screen and then zoom in, or I could click this Fit View to Selected, which will move my camera directly to that object and fill the screen. So let's do that. There we go. Yeah, so this is already in the ground, so that worked out well. Okay, let me zoom out. And finally, this windmill. Let me zoom to this. And now I'd like to rotate that so it's more appropriate for a windmill. So I can rotate it like this. And there we go. I can attach that to just about anything. So maybe I can grab this and bring it over in front of this building. Now I'm rotating the camera by holding the Alt key down and left button on my mouse and just moving my mouse. So let's zoom in a bit. Okay, and I'm going to want to move the windmill right next to the structure and maybe raise it up a bit and straighten it out. Just like that. So you can see that it has a pin, so I can put that pin right into the building like this. So now I've got that placed. Now I think I want to change some parameters. So let's begin by selecting this pillar and viewing what parameters I have available for this particular object. So if I look to the left of the venue builder, down below I see this parameters tab, and below it I have a few options. I can pick the type of pillar that's available and what heights there are for that. So I have a short, medium, and tall. Maybe I'll select the tall. Pretty much anything you select will have some form of a parameter. Not everything, but a lot of the components will. For the huts, this is hut 1. I can switch through the different huts, and I can use my wheel mouse at this point and just roll through them all instead of having to click and do the pull down every time. So let's just stick with 1 for right now, since I have this windmill already set. Now the windmill appears a bit small here, so let's see what parameters we have. We have different blade types. So the blade type 2, I believe, is a larger blade. So here we go. So that's a little bit better. But I might not want to have, 6 blades. I might want to change that. So I have the number of blades in the parameters, so I can change this as I go. I can have it as a single blade, and I can go to 8. Let's just keep it simple. Let's do something like 5. Also, I have a speed parameter for the windmill. Now, the speed parameter is rotations per second. So if I place this to 1, that should spin around 1 full revolution per second. To test this, I could simply move over to the simulate button, and by pressing that, it will actually simulate my scene. To stop the simulation, you hit the stop or reset button up here, and that will allow me to continue to change my parameters. If it is simulated, let's do that. I can select the objects, but I won't be able to adjust any of the parameters because it's locked. I'll have to stop the simulation first to do that. Okay, so that's pretty much how you change parameters on an object. Every object will have a different type of parameter. They won't all be the same. Some will have parameters to change the look in the texture. Some will have parameters to actually change the shape. Some will have parameters to do both. As you go through everything, you'll be able to see what kind of parameters you have. So that's an intro to placing and editing components. Thanks.